fear and hopelessness. That's why, Project 2025, that's the strategy, right? We all feel that fear, that hopelessness, like there's nothing we can do. Because they're also going to start targeting organizations. I'm a member of DSA LA, and they're already going after DSA. They're already we're communists now. We're like a threat. We're the rescue. We're like a threat to capitalism, a threat to democracy. I think they're already starting to align what they see as political opponents into these categories where we will be targeted soon. So we need to really all be there together. And the best weapon we always have against what they have is solidarity. And that was deep in the labor movement. I think that's coming out now, that the essence of solidarity in full force. But the best weapon we have against what they throw at us, all the attacks, is solidarity. And I think we just need to be in solidarity and community with each other.
Thank you so very much, Victor. That is a great way to end. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate the work that you are doing, and appreciate you, again, coming on the show, making sure that we have some things to think about and some things to do.
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you. And we need to protect KPFK too. All this.
Thank you. You're right about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that was Professor, Organizer, and Activist Victor Naro speaking about the ICE murders of Lorenzo Salgado Araujo and Juan Sebastian. And that's our show. I'd like to thank our guests, the Sojourner Truth family, especially my dear sister, Margaret Prescott, our board operator, Coltrane, our producer, Gary Scott, and you for joining us. Let's get together at the same time and place next week for Sojourner Truth Radio. Be well.
Mark your calendars. KPFK Summer Fun Drive officially kicks off on Tuesday, July 21st. We want to keep this drive as short as possible and get right back to the uninterrupted, commercial-free programming you love. But we can only do that with your immediate support. Shorten the drive today. Call 818-985-5735 and press option 2. That's 818-985-5735, option 2. Or skip the phone lines and give securely online right now at kpfk.org/donate. Your radio station, your voice. Keep it strong. Thank you.
We still believe in community, another community, a much stranger and wider community.
Support for KPFK is brought to you in part by Catalina's Jazz Club, presenting Omar Sosa and his Quarteto Americanos on Friday, July 17th, 2026. This evening celebrates the release of their brand new debut album, We Are Not the Headliner. Catalina's is located at 6725 Sunset Boulevard West in Hollywood, 1 block east of Highland. For further information and tickets, 323-466-2210 or online at catalinajazzclub.com and kpfk.org.
Soy Gregorio Luque y estás escuchando KPFK 90.7 FM en Los Ángeles, 98.7 FM en Santa Bárbara y por el mundo www.kpfk.org. I am Gregorio Luque and you're listening to KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles, 98.7 FM Santa Barbara, and throughout the world, you can contact us at
welcome again. This is Friday. It's 8 o'clock. That means it's time for Cut to the Chase. My name is Sly Rivers, and I have a program for you today. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I interviewed a man by the name of Victor Dreke. Victor Dreke and his wife also will be contributing to the interview. What can I say? He fought in the Bay of Pigs. Yes, he fought in the Bay of Pigs, and he volunteered to go to Africa and help those countries who were fighting for their independence. Guinea-Bissau, the Congo, not Ivory Coast, Cape Verde. So Victor Dreke, yes, he's going to be with us. I had the honor of meeting him when I was in Cuba. And I have to thank Mark Friedman for giving me the contact information for him. I'd like to thank our interpreter, because he is in Cuba. This interview, we called him in Cuba and talked to him there. He does speak Spanish, so we have an interpreter. I'd like to thank Dwayne Stillwell for doing the translation. And of course, our in-house team, Charlie Wilkin, is here, live streaming it on KPFK Media on YouTube, and he will be streaming it on my channel, Cut to the Chase. So we start out, by the way, it's a little under, so we'll have time for calls at the end, 818-985-5735 to call in and make comments about Victor Dreke, who fought with Che Guevara. Yes. Matter of fact, he fought in the Congo and Guinea-Bissau with Che Guevara. And Fidel, assigned him to go. Well, he volunteered, but then, they asked him, and he volunteered. And he talks about the difference between being a revolutionary and a mercenary. That will be coming into the show a little later as we talk. So we're going to, I started out by, a lot of people don't know what the Bay of Pigs is or was. So I started out by asking him, what was or is the Bay of Pigs at that time. And then he'll answer that, and then he'll be translated. The translator is Dwayne Stillwell. So fasten your seatbelts, folks. This is Cut to the Chase.
Bueno, para nosotros los cubanos.
For Cuba and for the many great friends that Cuba has around the world, the attempt to invade Cuba in the Bay of Pigs, which in Cuba is known as Girón, was a very big thing. It was the U.S. government's attempt to overthrow the revolution, which had occurred on January 1st, 1959.
Que son nuestros amigos, nuestros hermanos, sino el gobierno de Estados Unidos.
That was fought by many leaders, great leaders of the Cuban Revolution. Obviously, the never vanquished Fidel Castro, Raúl Castro, Juan Almeida, and others who fought in Oriente Province, in Escambray Province, in Havana, to defend not only the Cuban Revolution, but the humble people of Cuba.
Tell us the conditions in Cuba before the successful revolution in 1959. What were the conditions?
Y defendiendo al pueblo unido y humilde de Cuba.
People of Cuba carried out a huge revolution before January 1st, 1959, which was obviously directed by the commander-in-chief Fidel Castro, and it fought for leaders of the working class like Jesus Menendez, and leaders of the student movement like José Antonio Echeverría, and they were able finally to take power.
So, what is the significance of July 26th?
Que fue el día heroico e histórico.
The 26th of July is a historic and heroic day for in Cuba's history, where Fidel Castro and a small group of Cuban youth were many of them from the province of Pinar del Rio, took on the task of assaulting the Moncada barracks, which is in the province of Santiago de Cuba, and that was the second largest Cuban army installation of the Batista regime, where crimes were carried out against the youth and workers in Cuba.
Donde se cometían grandes crímenes sobre los jóvenes cubanos.
Muy bien. That is a glorious date, not only for the people of Cuba, but also for the people of the Americas, meaning Latin America, but also for the sister peoples of the United States.
After the 1959 revolution, what was implemented? What conditions? How did it change?
Lo primero fue que se
One of the first things that happened was the end of systemic racial discrimination, as well as discrimination of women by men. Just to broaden this a little bit, it was specifically the discrimination of whites against blacks in Cuba. It ended the possibility that those who had more money that was basically taken from the workers and the peasants of Cuba, was then used to treat them poorly. So it was that is what ended in Cuba after 1959. One of the things that happened, just to give you an example, that at that time in Cuba there were 5 million people in the country, and 1/2 of them were could not read or write. So they were, because of discrimination, they had not been able to learn to read and write. So one of the big things that happened was to teach the entire population to read and write through the famous literacy campaigns.
Gotcha. So I was in Cuba, I think it was
20?
Right before that, maybe 18 or 19. I would like to ask him, and I was able to hear a speech by him and meet him, but does he remember what he said in Cuba regarding revolutionaries versus mercenaries?
Bueno, hace algunos años de eso.
Sí.
Pero de todas formas, tengo casi buena memoria.
Muy bien. He says that it's been a while, but he tends to have a pretty good memory, and he's reaching the age of 100.
Wow.
He says a lot of what he learned himself, because he lived it in his own skin, so to speak. But he also saw others who suffered the same sorts of things. To better remember, he would like to know if you remember what
exactly
what the
I'll tell
speech
you
was about.
I'll tell him what he said. He said,
Okay.
He said, because we're going to talk about him going to Africa. He said, I volunteered to go to Africa. I'm a revolutionary. I volunteered. Y'all, other people, you're paid. You're mercenaries.
Okay.
Correcto. 100%. Lo felicito. Tiene buena memoria.
100%, and he congratulates you for such a good memory.
It was a powerful statement. So how could I forget that? I've never forgot that.
Diríamos casi igual, exactamente.
So if Cuba were to be
Pelearíamos
invaded,
en Cuba.
First of all, he congratulates you for having such a good memory and remembering that phrase. But he said if we would fight the same way if Cuba was ever invaded by the United States, we would fight as revolutionaries because we are patriots and we love the revolution, and we were taught how to fight by Fidel, Raúl, and the many other leaders of the Cuban Revolution.
Y como lo enseñó Che Guevara cuando llegó a África.
And the way
Que
Che
fue
Guevara
allí,
taught him when Che Guevara went to Africa,
no como mercenario,
not as
llegó allí
mercenaries,
como un patriota, defensor de las causas nobles del pueblo.
but as a patriot who was
Defensor
defending the noble causes of the people.
So how did he end up in Africa? How did he volunteer? What
de las ideas
motivated him to
de
go there?
Patricio Lumumba,
And
Y de
also
otros
defending the ideas of Patrice Lumumba,
patriotas africanos, y en este caso congoleses,
in this
que
case,
habían sido asesinados.
Congolese,
Y
that
los
were being
cubanos
murdered.
dieron ahí su vida, su sangre, su sudor, junto a los hermanos africanos.
So Cubans gave their blood, their their lives, their sweat, side by side with their brothers and sisters in Africa.
Igual lo repitieron en Guinea-Bissau, en Cabo Verde, en Angola también, y en otros pueblos de África.
So this was repeated not only in the Congo, but in Guinea-Bissau, Cape Verde, Angola, and other countries in Africa.
Lo único que nos hemos llevado de África es la sangre, el sudor, la ceniza de los más de 2,000 compañeros cubanos que cayeron allí combatiendo. Ese es el prestigio que tiene Cuba.
The prestige of Cuba comes from the fact that the only thing they took from Africa was the ashes of the blood and the sweat of the more than 2,000 Cubans who lost their life defending their brothers and sisters in Africa.
Me gustaría tener la oportunidad de que usted volviera a visitar Cuba en este momento.
I wish you could have the opportunity to visit Cuba again now.
I want
Y
to,
en mi
but I know
nombre,
it's crazy there. Go ahead.
en mi nombre y en el de mi
A él le
esposa,
gustaría, pero sabe que la situación es muy, muy difícil.
¿pero por qué?
Sí,
No
claro.
comprendo. Sí, todo el mundo puede ir a tener a Cuba. Cuba está abierta.
Ajá. He says Cuba is open. Anybody can come and visit.
I shall then.
Y le
I will.
decía
I
que
will.
Dice que sí va a buscar la manera de regresar, de venir otra vez a Cuba.
el problema es que a lo mejor después no lo dejan entrar allá. Eso sí me preocupa. Me trae una preocupación.
The
Pero
thing
bueno.
that worries him is not you coming, but the fact that once you go back, you may have trouble getting back in.
I'll just stay in Cuba. That'll be okay. I'll just stay in Cuba.
Dice que en ese caso se queda en Cuba, que no habría ningún problema.
Sin problema, aquí tiene donde estar. Por eso lo estoy invitando en mi nombre y en nombre de mi esposa, que también es combatiente africana, en nombre de una compañera que nos visita y en nombre del pueblo de Cuba.
He welcomes you. He
Somos
said,
hermanos.
Ajá, siga.
Somos hermanos de África y somos hermanos del pueblo de Estados Unidos. Atención con lo que estoy diciendo. Somos hermanos del pueblo de Estados Unidos. Y los 138 votos a favor de Cuba en este último evento demuestran que el pueblo de Estados Unidos, si lo someten a votación, votan la gran mayoría por Cuba, por su revolución y por sus hermanos. Pero bueno, tiene mucha democracia, pero no pueden votar. Doloroso.
He says that, of course, they would welcome you in Cuba, and he says that in not only in his name, but his wife's name, who also fought in Africa, and many other people there, because they are they have well, they are a fraternal relationship with the people of Africa, but he said, and listen to what I'm saying, also with the people of the United States. Recently at the UN, the question of the blockade of Cuba was just recently taken up, and there were 138 votes for Cuba, and it was a resounding victory for Cuba. And it demonstrates also that if the people of the United States got to vote, they would vote against the blockade of Cuba. But unfortunately, you maybe have a democracy, but you don't get to vote on things like that.
So true, so true. So I am so impressed by his courage to go to Africa, brother Victor and his wife. How did you get that courage? What prompted you to go to Africa to help those African countries in their liberation?
Defender a un pueblo hermano que estaba siendo asesinado. Nos impulsó nuestro principio revolucionario.
The biggest
Nuestro principio humano.
impulse to volunteer and go was to defend sister people in Africa that were being murdered, and also the other human principles of any decent human being. Of course, back then we were a little younger than we are now, but also the love for the people of humble means. That the revolution, as Fidel said, was the Cuban Revolution was by the poor, for of the poor, by the poor, and for the poor or the humble people, and that was forever. The same criteria also made other brothers and sisters from Africa to fight alongside others. And we have to remember all of the Africans who were deported to Cuba during the slave trade. He was referring to the slave trade, and they were received in Cuba. He also wanted to point out that many people from around the world, including the United States, fought alongside their brothers and sisters in Cuba for Cuba's independence. And that's why the team of the groups of doctors that go on internationalist missions, Cuban doctors that go on internationalist missions around the world, are named after Henry Reeve, who was an American of Irish descent, who is known there as El Cubanito. He lost a leg and continued fighting until his last breath to defend Cuba. And that's why the teams of Cuban doctors are named after him. That's it. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's very emotional. If you understand, this is real. This is not a story. This is Victor.
Exactly.
I would like to know, a big name in the States is Che Guevara. He fought with or under Che Guevara. Can he talk about that relationship and talk about Che?
Bueno, para hablarte de cómo era Che necesitaría mucho tiempo. Pero te puedo hablar en dos frases.
He says that to speak of Che, he would take a very, very long time. But he can briefly say that Che was, for him, it was homeland or death. He was very firm in his principles, and that's why he fought for peoples all over the world, especially the Congolese. He was there not only as a leader of the 130 volunteers who went to Leopoldville in Congo, but it was not just his courage, but he was not only the leader, but he was also a physician, and he served as such. So he said it was a great life lesson. There was a lot to learn from Che, but also from Fidel, Raúl, from Díaz-Canel, and that's why he supports the the Communist Party, the revolution, and everything that Cuba stands for.
En estos momentos nos duele, por supuesto, mucho ver como el gobierno de Estados Unidos quiere matar de hambre.
He said today it's very sad. It hurts us to see that there are people who want to kill the Cuban people through hunger, thirst, and disease because of the the situation that they're imposing on Cuba. He wonders what class of human being, what kind of person would be willing to do that. And he said it's painful, but just like we fought for children in Angola and in Africa, we will now fight for children here in Cuba that are also dying because of what the United States is imposing on the island. He said one day karma will have something to say to those people. He said a lot of people who speak about Cuba without knowing what it represents or what it is. Many of them were not born in Cuba, and clearly they didn't learn or they haven't heard what happened after the Bay of Pigs, which in Cuba is known as Playa Girón, and what happened to the Brigade 2506 or 2506. If they knew they weren't only defeated, but they were treated with every courtesy and human dignity and respect until they were returned to the United States, those that did not perish.
Nuestros hermanos cubanos también tuvieron que en el Congo Brazzaville.
So he says that in Cuba, the Cubans who fought in Congo and Brazzaville also took care of the sick there. There were also physicians, and there were many people who fought heroically, and some are their names endure, like Jorge Risquet Valdez, who gave their life, their sweat, and everything, all the knowledge that they could impart there, and others as well, including the Dr. Ana Morales, who is here with us today, and she's the one who arranged this call. She was there to found. Yes, she was there. She was one of the founders of the first medical school in Guinea-Bissau that carries the name of Raúl Díaz Argüelles, and she was there as a doctor, as a physician, to help found that school. Y doctora Ana Morales, Sylvestor quiere darle también las gracias a usted, por su servicio a la humanidad.
Gracias también. Gracias.
So,
bueno, muchas gracias.
We have during the Soviet Union, they helped Russia in its. I'm sorry, the Soviet Union helped Cuba during the period before what they called the special period. Did other countries come to your aid during that time? And would you talk about Russia's role in sustaining Cuba in those first years after the revolution?
No, yo creo que con esa No me queda nada más que decir, puedo agregar algo.
Okay, so he just wanted to add before going on to the next question that the Cuban doctors were never sent, didn't impose their presence anywhere. They were always requested, they were always asked to come and help. And they were, they were always needed where they went. They never were an imposition or something that was imposed by Cuba. They were always requested by the recipient countries. And he just wanted to also explain that the same policy has been applied in the diplomatic arena, that there's people like Ramon Agramonte, but also Oscar Gramas Olivar, who was an ambassador to many African countries and was also at the UN, and the another Cuban diplomat whose name was Raúl Roacuri, who was known as the diplomat of peace. So he just wanted to make sure that, to make it very clear that Cubans always went where they were asked to go and where they could see that they could, help out. So he wanted to also just say that they will always do their duty, that the enemy, meaning countries like the United States, send their soldiers to very remote areas to kill. But what Cuba does is Cuba sends physicians, doctors, to those also very remote areas to cure. And it's very important for all the friends of Cuba to know that, there are Cuban teachers and doctors and paramedics and others helping out in the most remote places in the world.
Wow.
Entonces, puedo hacerle la pregunta que sigue. I'll continue with your other question.
Para nosotros, la Unión Soviética fue un país hermano.
So just remembering the role of the Soviet Union, the role that the Soviet Union played before it fell apart and was dismembered, and before this special period in Cuba, that it was always had a fraternal relations with Cuba and began to help Cuba right after the United States stopped all imports of sugar from Cuba right after the revolution. So the Soviet Union always accompanied Cuba, but it wasn't only the Soviet Union, it was also countries like China and Vietnam, as well as other countries in Europe and Asia. And even now, Cuba is being helped or being accompanied by countries like Mexico and Brazil. And he says that when people are detained, when they come back from Cuba to the United States, he said, what are they afraid of? Maybe they feel that they have the seeds of revolution with them. But he said Cuba never is a peaceful country, is never tries to in any way impose anything on any other country. But he said, but Cuba knows how to defend itself. So if the U.S. was ever to invade, they're going to get a big surprise, because we are going to defend our country.
Beautiful. Let me ask him, would he mind, he went to different countries, the Congo. Could he talk about the differences in those liberation movements in those countries, and give us an idea of why one was successful and one might not have been successful?
Cada uno de los países en que hemos estado nosotros personalmente y otros
He said it
compañeros.
wasn't just all of us, those of us who went to Cuba as volunteers who participated. Every country was different, but he wants to make sure that he gets across that those people were able to, those people in those countries were able to do what they did, or to win the victories that they did because of their own work and their own efforts. Cuba, the help of Cuba was seen as necessary at that time, but he said that we consider ourselves a very small, we just helped in a small way. We're like a small seed. We don't proclaim to be anybody's hero or saviors or anything like that. But one of the things that we were able to contribute with was with preparing many physicians in those countries. And he's referring to the ELA.
Like today.
Bueno, brillante, te puedo decir.
So he says that what can he say? Cuba would be a brilliant, beautiful place if it wasn't for the blockade. He said the proof of that is that even though, even under such a long and cruel blockade, they've been able to do a few things, a number of advances, which are actually a very long list, but people can find out on their own. He said that is that current occupant of the White House doesn't even under people of the United States such a long and cruel what Cuba's like. They've been able why don't they let people do a few things, a number of advances, if they came, they would see what actually a very long list to achieve. And people can that's what they don't find out on their own. He said that is that current occupant of the United States doesn't even under people of the United States such a long rim cruel what Cuba is like. They've been able why don't they let people do a few things, a number of advances, people which came, they would see what actually a very long list to achieve. And
is that why
they don't
he
find out
believes, or
on their own.
I see it, is that why the U.S. is so hostile against Cuba? I mean, where's the why? Why this over 60-year blockade? Why?
Bueno, esa actividad realmente viene hablando ahora en esta última etapa de los 63 años que podemos decir bien desde que Cuba fue
The
independiente.
hostility comes that fact that Cuba has always fought and been independent. Even though there were a few false steps at the beginning, the successive governments of the United States have tried to take charge or take over Cuba, just like they wanted to be in charge of and take over Panama. In the end, they were able to take the province of what's the territory that the United States Guantanamo. They took Guantanamo illegally. It continues to be Cuban territory. And after Cuba has been fighting to get it back for 135 years, and that's the sort of thing that they don't like. They don't like the ideas of Martí and Fidel. The Cuban government has always historically been willing to sit down at the table, to dialogue, to live in the world just like people live in their own society. And he said that what's happening now in the United States is like the law of the jungle, but that people are not going to take all this lying down. Cuba has always been willing to sit down, to have dialogue, to, like he said, have human relations with any other country. And Cuba is a peaceful country. Right now, they're blocking the entry of medicines to Cuba. And what that shows is a lack of dignity, of decorum, of human decency to try to force, a whole people to basically drop dead, So and now with the fuel blockade, what Cuba is doing is that it's trying its best to resist. And they're doing this creatively, not, resisting creatively, not only to live, but to create things. And Cuban youth are out there inventing and trying to do anything that they can to overcome this particular period in their lives. They take very seriously their battle cry of homeland or death, and they will defend their socialism and defend their revolution, because when they do that, they are paying homage to all the blood that has been spilled by people who have fought for Cuba's independence.
And you're listening to an interview with Victor Dreke, and his wife will come on shortly. We interviewed him yesterday. They were in Cuba. They are in Cuba, and he fought in the Bay of Pigs. He also fought with Che Guevara. He was there. He was it. This is it. And if we have time at the end, we will open up the phones, 818-985-5735, for those of you who want to make comments. I'm looking at the chats, and we have some really paid informants here. Oh, it's terrible. Communism is terrible. So look, y'all call in 818-985-5735 at the end, and let me hear you live if you dare. The U.S. budget for military is humongous, something $1 trillion, and I guess they're paying you too. You're getting part of that money. Anyway, let's continue. This is the interview with Victor Dreke, who is a revolutionary, not a mercenary
in the past.
Wow. I would like to pivot a little bit. Anna, I would like Anna, if she wouldn't mind. I want to talk about the role of women in the revolution, but Anna was in Africa. Would she mind sharing some of her experiences as a revolutionary in Africa?
Bueno, gracias por darme la oportunidad de explicarle algo referente a la mujer en Cuba y el papel de la mujer cubana en África. Creo que son dos líneas que
first, thank you for allowing me to explain a little bit about the role of women and also the role of women in Africa. Since the triumph of the revolution, one of the main protagonists in the fight of Cuban women has been the Federation of Cuban Women, the FMC, which was initiated in a public event where Fidel Martí, where Vilma Espín took the leadership of the Federation of Cuban Women from the beginning. Vilma Espín was also one of the revolutionaries who fought in the mountains for the during the revolutionary upsurge that led to the victory. And Fidel always spoke about, say, by Martí, that the women represent a very important, very important destacado, which means that it's some. In other words, that women have taken on an extremely important role, a role that is recognized by everyone, and which has, led to that famous phrase by Fidel Castro when talking about the achievements of women in Cuba, that women represent in Cuba a revolution within a revolution.
Dentro de la revolución, así mismo.
Right.
Pero algunos ejemplos puntuales que podemos dar para que tenga una idea son los
She also spoke about the valor and the position of women in Cuban society, and the value that they have. She wanted to give a few examples. Many women in Cuba before the revolution were relegated to domestic chores, and now they work just for they receive the same exact pay for the same work as men. They can study at the university at any level. They can participate in any activity. And proof of that is the presence of women in the Cuban state, where more than 50% of the state apparatus is women, is composed of women. Women in Cuba can be ministers, they can be scientists, they can be ballerinas, they can participate in every sphere of human endeavor, and the Cuban Revolution is attests to that.
Y con relación a África, esta misma composición se traduce en todas las misiones internacionalistas.
So you wanted to know about the role of women in Africa. Women, of course, participated in all of the internationalist missions in all the different countries where Cuba was asked to go. She says she'll just say that, not to make it an extremely long presentation, but she says that personally, she came from very humble origins. Her father wanted to become a doctor, but couldn't. She was able to study medicine within the area of public health, and she has participated in the founding of many polyclinics and other institutions and other health health programs in the provinces. She's now retired, but she was a professor and a researcher as a physician. And now that she's retired, she's a delegate to and leads 3 community projects that have to do with health in the communities in Cuba.
Precisarle que el ser delegada es un cargo gubernamental.
So she also just wanted to add a small point. Cuban women have also been ever present outside of Cuba. She was part of a medical mission, as she explained, in Guinea-Bissau, and she worked there with the health minister, opening up one of the first medical schools in that country, a school that has now graduated 700 physicians that have gone on to go and help elsewhere in Africa. She was also the first secretary of she was also part of the embassy in Equatorial Guinea. She was the first secretary of the Cuban embassy in Equatorial Guinea, and that women in Cuba are trying to maintain the same level of activity, both in Cuba and whenever they represent Cuba elsewhere. during these last 68 years since the revolution.
Well, both of you were young when you went there. What is your sense of the youth today? Are they politicized as you are? Are they ready to defend the revolution? I know the United States has been doing psychological warfare on them to make them feel like there's something better, which there's not. You were young and you were very politicized. What is your sense of the youth today in Cuba?
Bueno, como ya tengo el teléfono en la mano, voy a contestar yo primero y voy a dejar a Víctor para que haga el resumen.
So she said she's got the phone in her hand, so she's going to be the first to answer. They themselves continue to feel young. They are with the youth and they're in the communities. And they have just begun a phase of transformation that I'm sure you've all heard about, where the Council of State has approved and passed 176 measures to change the way the economy functions, and it's organized across 23 different axes of development for Cuba. And the youth are part of that. And in fact, they themselves started a group, a network of youth that goes to all the different neighborhoods and communities to explain what these changes are, these 23 axes of development, and to listen and to also find out what the communities face on the ground. And one of the questions that they keep hearing is, are we going to transition back to capitalism? Are we going back to capitalism? And the answer that she gave was never. She was 13 years old when the revolution happened, and her mother used to tell her all the horrible things that people had to endure before the revolution. These changes are being made as a function of figuring out how to ameliorate or to better the situation that Cubans in the street face, to make it better for the citizens of Cuba. They are one of the ways they're doing this is to face or to try to deal with the people in the greatest situation of vulnerability, who are have, whether they're not working or for whatever reason. One of the big changes is, instead of subsidizing products wholesale, what Cuba is going to do is now, for example, the scientific institute in the community where she works is doing that for 6 families in that community who are the most vulnerable, making sure that they get food every day and all the basics covered. One of the things that has already been functioning in Cuba for a while is the pymes, which are the small, medium, micro, small, and medium enterprises. And that means that these are small private enterprises. The people who run them are called cuentapropistas because they're basically on their own. But they also contribute to the vulnerable families in their community. Cuba has had experience with these kinds of privations before. We mentioned before the special period in the 1990s, and Ana says we survived. In 2002, the book of Victor Dreke, when it was published, he and her went to 7 states in the United States, and they spoke at 14 different universities. Food, and other people would chip in, and she also mentioned there was a huge lack of fuel, and everybody started riding bicycles. In fact, Cuba began to manufacture bicycles at that time to sort of face that situation.
Just give last comments of what they wanted to, share with my audience, which for the most part is here in the United States.
Bueno, muy agradecido por esta entrevista que ustedes acaban de hacernos a nosotros dos.
So Victor said that they were very, very grateful for this interview, for this interview of the two of them. It reflects the love that the people of the United States have with us, meaning the people of Cuba. And it also gives us a way to find out what the people of the United States are thinking. And that we again, thank you for this interview. We are never going to forget it. Just remember that Cuba is a fraternal country, and as Che would say, forever until victory.
Okay.
Bueno, yo creo que con el mensaje de Víctor ya es suficiente. Me sumo a él.
Would you translate what you said first?
Translate. She just chimed in and saying that with his closing remarks, that's enough. She doesn't feel that she needs to add anything.
Great. Thank you so much.
Oh, and one last thing that they will, the Cuban people will never let us down.
Cuba has helped Black Americans specifically for a long time, and we thank them for keeping Assata Shakur safe. And I'm really humble and honored to talk to both of them. My plan is to come to Cuba and live for 6 months so I could learn Spanish. So don't be surprised if I knock at your door, and ask for lessons. And again, I'm truly honored. And Viva la Cuba. And the problem with America is, unfortunately, I'm in the minority. Most of the Americans don't know what Cuba is, and they don't care. They're heartless, they're ruthless, they're imperialist, and I appreciate and commend them for what they've done for humanity.
Será bien recibido.
Y dice, bueno, lo que decimos muchos, viva Cuba. Que desgraciadamente los que sabemos la verdad.
And that was an interview I had with Victor Dreke and his wife, Ana Morales. They were in Africa helping the people, the humanitarians. We'll have a time for a couple calls, possibly 818-985-5735. It got very emotional to me and our interpreter, who we want to thank, Dwayne Stillwell. We thank Mark Friedman for giving me the contact number. We thank Ronnie for helping out on the phones. We thank Charlie for streaming it live. And one caller called in and said, don't forget about South Africa. They being the Cubans, helped South Africa win their independence. Remember when Mandela came back, he said, if it wasn't for South Africa, we would not have gotten our independence. And for you callers on the chats talking about, oh, communism is so terrible and all this, you haven't been anywhere. You don't know anything. Socialism is so bad, whereas the United States has some socialist aspects to it. So as we go out, let's see what this caller has to say. This is Elaine from Los Angeles. Good morning, Elaine. How are you? We got her up.
You were questioning why people hate Black people so much. Well, I think it's because of our power. And we know that during the Civil War, when the South was winning, Lincoln finally let in the Northern Blacks, and they went in and defeated the South. And I think that's why they still dislike Black people. In addition to that, I visited Cuba, and it's my understanding that Cuba is more than 50%, maybe even 60% African American.
Well, you know what, Elaine? I want to tell you what Fidel said. He said every Cuban has African going through their blood.
Great. Well, my point is that, the Western powers know that those were the Africans really that defeated the Spanish and drove them out.
Yes.
So, that's twice. People of African descent have defeated decolonizers. And so I just wanted to point that out. We are a powerful people, and if we could get ourselves organized, we would really flip the switch, right? Thank you.
I really appreciate that. And you have a good point there. So why do they hate black people? I think the Congressman Ro Connor was in Israel, and he said, you know, the Israelis attacked him. Why did they attack him? He said, because I had dark skin. You know, my thing is that Israel is a white nationalist country now. That's what it is. Hello. If you want to, if you don't want to dispute that, let me know. But right now there's an attack on communism with people not knowing what communism is. I think, who was it? Marco Rubio. Oh, we're fighting against communism. You know, if something's helping the population of the people, is good. Some communist countries are not good. Some so-called democracies are not good. So let's not paint this broad brush, but they're using those terminologies to make you think that, oh, this is terrible and we have to fight it. So we can kill people. Let's kill people. Let's kill people. That, you know, they're bad, so let's kill them because they might, you know, get to us. So this has been Cut to the Chase. My name is Sly Rivers. We come on every Friday at 8 a.m. And what we do is we cut to the chase. We don't, we tell you what it is. And this is a lot of what I say is facts. It's not opinion. We have the receipts to back it up. So for those of you who are on the chat who are, I guess, getting paid to denounce communism and other things, hey, congratulations, you got a job. They paid the overseers too. You know, a lot of people getting paid. Like Dreke said, the United States Army is nothing but a mercenary army. They get paid. They get paid. You do whatever you can for money. People will kill people for money. But here, we're volunteers. Matter of fact, I'm volunteering at this station. I don't get paid. So I'm not a mercenary. I'm a truth missionary. And with that, we're going to end our program. We thank you so much for joining in. Tell all your friends about it. We are on different media platforms. And hey, we thank you again and again and again. Stay tuned for Tom Hartman. This has been Cut to the Chase.
In a world filled with corporate media, predictable sound bites, and endless commercials, there's still a place for independent truth. That place is KPFK. And on Tuesday, July 21st, our summer fund drive officially begins. We know you tune in for the hard-hitting news, deep cultural insights, and music you won't hear anywhere else. You don't tune in to hear us ask for money. That's why our goal this summer is simple. Keep the fundraising days to an absolute minimum. Your early support is the engine that powers this station and keeps the fund drives short. Call us now at 818-985-5735 and press option 2. That's 818-985-KPFK, option 2. If you prefer, skip the phone lines entirely. Make your secure tax-deductible donation online at kpfk.org/donate. Free speech isn't free. It's listener-funded. Keep KPFK strong, independent, and commercial-free. Thank you for your support.
The People's Game returns to KPFK. You're invited to join host Alan Minsky every Friday evening from 5 to 6 p.m. He's diving deep into the upcoming action on the pitch and the fierce politics, economics, and culture behind the scenes. From host nation corruption to global human rights, to get the world's game like only Pacifica Radio can deliver, tune in this Friday at 5 p.m. and every Friday until July 26th, right here at 90.7 FM KPFK, or stream it live at kpfk.org. The People's Game, where sports meets the real world.
90.7 FM, KPFK, Los Angeles.
A Treasury official is fired and ICE spills more blood. Good morning. This is the Commonwealth Report, news for the public, not the powerful.
You can find us and follow us at commonwealthreport.news. Trump is laying the groundwork to reject the midterms. Last night, Donald Trump took over primetime television to wage war on your right to vote. Standing in the East Room, he claimed America's election security falls catastrophically short, recycled long-debunked conspiracy theories about mail voting and voting machines, and demanded Congress pass his stalled federal elections takeover bill just 4 months before the midterms. Democracy advocates saw this coming. As one warned before the speech, quote, Trump is trying to end our democracy. He's already purged the Election Assistance Commission, sued to seize private voter data, and pushed to decertify voting machines across the country. Understand what's happening here. He knows Republicans are facing a wipeout in November. He said himself he could be impeached. And so he's laying the groundwork to reject any election he loses. That's not politics. That's authoritarianism live on television. Trump declassified the proof that Putin was helping him all along. And here's the kicker. In that same speech, Trump told Americans to go read the documents he just declassified. Well, somebody actually did. One of them is a National Intelligence Council assessment from August of 2020. And it says Putin and senior Russian officials personally oversaw a proxy operation to smear Joe Biden with a manufactured Ukraine corruption scandal. Their aim is to defeat the former vice president, the assessment says, and ensure Trump's victory. For years, Trump swore Russia never lifted a finger for him. His own document release just proved that was a lie. He was so eager to sell his stolen election fantasy that he accidentally published the receipts on his own White House website. The man attacking our elections is the one foreign dictators keep trying to install. Let that sink in. Why did ABC, NBC, and CNN refuse to air Trump's speech? For the first time in memory, ABC, NBC, and CNN all refused to carry a presidential primetime address live on their main channels, shoving it onto streaming platforms instead. CNN's John King explained it plainly, saying this president has, quote, a history of misleading and in some cases simply false statements about elections. Trump had spent days pressuring the networks to